All right, welcome back everybody to Altcoin Daily. Today I want to share with you something that you probably haven't seen before, and it's in regards to where Bitcoin is going in the short term. Where do you see Bitcoin going in April? I'm going to give you my thoughts because lately on this channel, I've been talking a lot about where I think Bitcoin's going to be a year from now, where I think Bitcoin's going to be many years from now. You know my thoughts. If you invest in Bitcoin today in this bear market when nobody's talking about it, if you invest in Bitcoin and a select few altcoins down the road, I think it will lead to life-changing wealth because we are all early adopters in this space. And you know what? The corporate business development head and the president of Fidelity Digital Assets, he agrees with me that we are still very much early adopters. We'll get to that in a second. But for now, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the short term. And this comes courtesy of data and analysis done by Willy. And if you don't know Willy, this is his site, and this is him. So Willy, he's an extremely respected Bitcoin market analyst, and he specializes in on-chain data analysis. So look at this. He collects and he studies data that most other analysts don't look at. See, most other analysts, they're looking at on-exchange data, and Willy, he studies on-chain data. So this is something new. This is only possible because all transactions are stored on the blockchain, and now we can, check this out. It's doing pretty revolutionary work, in my opinion. And today, specifically, we're going to focus on NVT Signal, NVT ratio, and Bitcoin's on-chain volume. And if you didn't know, Bitcoin's on-chain volume has been pretty bullish these last few months. There's been a lot of action going on, and it's led Wu to believe that a lot of people have been accumulating, and things were looking so good that Wu actually came out to all these people. He came out as bullish to short-term Bitcoin bears, including Coinbase and Tyler Jenks. These are people who think Bitcoin has yet to bottom and that Bitcoin will bottom closer to $1,000 and we'll be in this bear market for another, a while. Willy, he came out to these people and he actually told them that because of the on-chain volume and the NVT signal and some other data, that it was his belief at the time of this podcast that Bitcoin had bottomed and the bear cycle had bottomed at $3,100. Now, I've not heard anything different from Wu at this point, but we do have some more info regarding the short term. What we're taking a look at is actually, let's blow up this picture right here. You can find this chart yourself. It's called Bitcoin NVT Signal. It's part of, Wu's plethora of charts. And he tweeted it out, and so right here, you can see right here, and you can see that we broke this trend line. So we broke the trend line. That combined with the fact that Bitcoin that the NVT signal seems overbought, and the realized price is providing resistance at about 4,320. He says that you can read this right here, he says there's very little probability we'll make a break for 5K, as many have suggested, and the most probable path is back down to retest prior support in the mid 3K range in April. So once again, you can see that the NVT signal broke a trend line. It's not going down necessarily, but it did break the line. Besides that, he says that it is overbought. You can see that here. It's not, when it's in between these two dotted lines, that's a good time to buy, according to him. And when it's above, we're a little bit overbought. And then he also said that you can see the realized Bitcoin price right here that is looming overhead. That's going to provide a little bit of resistance. So according to him, we're going to retest mid 3K in April, which again would put us above the 200-week moving average, which again, he seems to suggest that he hasn't changed his mind, that we've bottomed at 3,100. Guys, I know the sentiment among half of my audience right now is, well, you'd call it realistic. Some people would call it short-term bearish. I myself also think that we could possibly fall to these lower levels, but we'll see. I am accumulating at this time, just so you know. We will see. We will see. Next up, this is really interesting. So we finally have some more information from Fidelity on exactly what their belief on their role in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space. And it's from this man right here. His name is Tom Jessop. He's the head of corporate business development at Fidelity Investments and the president of their Fidelity Digital Assets division. And the headline is, it's still very much an early adopters market. And we have plenty of direct information from him. All this green that you see in front of you, that's his direct quotes. So we'll get into some of it. He He says what's interesting when you look at the data, as you might expect, it's still very much an early adopters market. It's like the folks that you would look at and say would tend to be more of the risk-taking investors on the spectrum. So the hedge funds and perhaps the family offices are further ahead than the pension funds and the endowments at this time. So Fidelity, they handle hedge funds, they handle family offices, and much more. Fidelity has recently begun offering a Bitcoin custody service. He says, we started with what we'll call crypto native types. So a lot of crypto hedge funds. They're dipping their toes. This is more of the article. They're dipping their toes, seeing whether the water is nice enough to swim. Behind them stands about 2.5 trillion in funds under management, a wholesaler of 401k pensions. Another direct quote, look, I don't think that the market's ready for this, he says, referring to potentially bringing in the 401k side of crypto. When we're talking about institutional liquidity, given that many of these exchanges have effectively retail order books, the price impact of big institutional orders into a framework like that can be significant. The combined market cap of all the cryptos and tokens currently stands at about $140 billion. That's one publicly traded stock company. It's just 10% of Apple's shares. The global stock market, by comparison, is 100 trillion, making crypto 0.1% of it. Then you have the gold market, which is some trillion, 7.5, housing, of course, and bonds, and so on. In many ways, cryptos are tiny fish in that big picture where we're talking of 2.5 trillion to be spent somewhere with the hope of making a return. Interestingly, however, some early adopters among institutional investors have already moved some of their funds, probably tiny amounts, in their overall balance sheet towards crypto. He says this, we just completed a survey of about 450 institutions, so everything from family offices to registered investment advisors to hedge funds. It's interesting. I think about 20% indicated that they currently allocate to digital assets with an intention to grow that. Of the folks they allocated, they will increase their allocations on average. They'll double their allocations over the next 5 years. And if you want, you can continue reading this article. I just wanted to share with you the fact that not only, as you can see based on the data, Fidelity is suggesting we're early adopters, which I agree with. He's not only suggesting that, he's planning years down the line, and not just him. He says that plenty of other institutional investment firms, some of them have started allocating already, but this is a snowball, basically. Interesting stuff. What do we think about this? Let me know. One more thing before we finish up the video. Aw, look at the little puppy. So this is funny. Swiss startup wants you to record your pets on blockchain to stop puppy mills. So we're not going to get into the article. I think it's not a great idea. To provide more clarity in the field, Swiss startup Cognipets plans to store the identity of dogs and cats on the blockchain in a bid to reduce instances of misleading and fraudulent practices. So this is not a good idea. This is just like every other. I saw somebody commented underneath this, and I agree with their points. They basically said that this is just like every other project that's aiming to register physical objects to the blockchain. It's nonsense, because you have to have somebody register the animal when it's born. And this person, I'm reading now, this person can be bribed or coerced, and therefore you must trust some entity already. Might as well use a spreadsheet and have them issue entries without blockchain security theater. Blockchain can store a piece of data, but it cannot verify the veracity of any data added to it in the first place. Garbage in, garbage out. So I love pets. I love this little dog, but not a great idea. Anybody think this is a good idea? All right. Finally, I'm going to give you my thoughts on, let's just wrap this up. Let's review the situation here. So 2019, this is not a year for massive gains. 2019, it's a year for infrastructure build-out, for hodling, for accumulation, and more than that, 2019 will be remembered as the year where smart money learns about Bitcoin. So, are you smart money or are you dumb money? If you are still here after almost a year and a half of despair, if you are still here after over 100 days of boredom, if you're still here knowing that any significant bull run and any significant gains probably won't happen until the end of the year, at the earliest. Congratulations. You have the potential to make a lot of money in this space in the future. See, the majority of the people like to buy right up here, right around this area. This is, dumb money buys near the top, and they expect to see the same results as the people who bought near the bottom, right? I mean, even if you're not buying now, even if you're just hodling and watching and waiting, I think it'll pay off. You're way better off than somebody who's only going to reinvest in Bitcoin when we get back, to this area. That's my thoughts, guys. Appreciate you guys. Let me know if you'll be the 70,000th person to subscribe to the channel. I want to thank you guys for sticking around each and every day. Truly appreciate, the conversations or even the positivity you guys have in the comments, keeping us going through the bear market. I think it's going to pay off for all of us. See you guys tomorrow.